Hey guys, Buck Weezer here. We're putting the do-it-yourself, and I welcome you back. We got another interesting mower brought in to us today to take a look at. It's a John Deere. Yeah, it's a goofy looking thing with these front articulating arms, isn't it? Well, apparently I had serviced this mower 5 years ago. I really have no recollection of that because, I don't know, you can look at a lot of lawnmowers over span of 5 years and I don't specifically recall it, but it came back, and this is what I was told. He says the owner said I took the blade off to sharpen it, and when I put it back on, maybe I put it on too tight because now the engine won't turn. Now that sounds a little odd to me, but that's the occasion on which it's here. So it's a John Deere JS 663C. It's got a Briggs & Stratton motor, and the date code here is 03. So it's 20 years old, but it's still in pretty nice shape. So let's take a look underneath at the job he did with the blade, and we'll take it from there, okay? Well, I don't know. I don't really see any issues with this blade, and the engine does spin, at least a little bit, right? And it doesn't, I mean, I don't know how you can screw up installing the blade, and putting it on too tight would not impact the engine. So I don't really see anything under here to be too terribly alarmed about. Let's just put it down and see if it'll start up. Just pull the rope a few times here. It's really tight, unusually tight. And I've made another observation just in pulling that string a few times. Not sure if you can see this. We've got some oil dripping from up above. This is over by the carburetor. So I think we got some oil spitting out of the breather element. I'll have to take this cover off and we'll take a closer look. Let's check that oil first. See what's going on with that. It looks overfilled. Yeah, it does. I don't know if you can see that. Well, here's the fill notch, and we're a half-inch higher than that. So it's overfilled. The crankcase is overfilled. That could be a problem. Let me take this off real quick and we'll look at that. Right, air filter, and we got some oil up here. And oil down here, so it's spitting out of this breather tube down here. Alright, so I think what we need to do is drain this old oil, get some clean oil in there filled at the right level, and take it from there. I think the overfilling is probably at least part of what the problem is here. Well, that's a lot of grass and debris built up over there. 5 years worth of it, I guess. A lot of debris around this drive axle too. Well, let's clean that out. That can only help, right? Well, at least 20 years ago they had drain plugs. Anymore they don't have them. I changed the oil by using a hand pump to pump out the old stuff. I also took off this little boot tube, and I can see it's got a crack in it. It's why we had that oil leak. That may not have been a factor if the crankcase hadn't been overfilled, but definitely that's where it was leaking out. So got to try to replace this boot if I can. Well, I decided I should take the cover off, take the engine shroud and the rope starter off, just so I could take a look at the flywheel. I wanted to make sure that the flywheel keyway was not misaligned. That sometimes can give you the feeling of, well, the timing would be way off and make it really hard to pull. So I just want to do that. I've got other videos on that, so I didn't really film the process. But everything under there looks fine. I don't see any problems. I do see this fuel hose is 20-year-old fuel hose. We got to replace that. That's all cracked. So we'll do that real quick. And that's just a good bit of maintenance that we need to do. And we're making some progress here. See if we can get this thing running again. Well, let's go ahead and add some oil. I'm thinking 16 ounces to start, and we can check it. So half a quart. Looks like I already put in more than that. And almost there. All right. We'll give that a try. Kind of hard to tell. Alright, let's try that for now. I'm going to pull the spark plug and then just turn the engine over a few times. I want to see if, maybe the combustion chamber is flooded with oil or gas. That's a pretty wet spark plug. Wow, it's very wet. There also appears to be like no gap. Well, there is a gap. It was just filled with oil or something. Just see what happens when I pull this a few times. I'm gonna get a new spark plug, we'll put it in there, and then it's time to see if it wants to run for us. Alright, so this old plug is the Champion RC12YC, and I've got the Briggs & Stratton equivalent 491055T. We'll give that a try. And yeah, see, it did spit some oil out of here. Now my guess is if this starts for us, it'll smoke for a little bit because of the oil in there. So we'll just have to see how it goes. Alright, let's give that a try. That's interesting, because that really still is very, very hard to pull. So we haven't gotten to the bottom of it quite yet. I just want to see if even with the difficult rope pull, if we can get this guy to start. Let's cheat with a little of that. See if we can muscle through it. Alright, well that's helpful. We know that it starts and runs, just a really hard rope pull. It did smoke a little bit at first, as I predicted it might, because it had been overfilled with oil. That burned off and was fine. Seems to run pretty good. We know that timing is not off, or it would not have run so well. So what I'm beginning to suspect is a broken compression release on the camshaft. And I think to confirm that, I'm going to put this guy up on the workbench and we're going to pull that valve cover. We'll do so, we'll turn the engine manually and see if we can see that little compression release bump on the exhaust valve while we turn it by hand. I have a feeling that that might be what the problem is. See how much oil we spill out of this. Feels like it may have been off before. Not sure. Alright, so there's our rocker arms. And I'd like to use a feeler gauge just to see what kind of clearances we got on those. Should be about 5 thousandths, 4 to 6 thousandths, you know, each of them, somewhere in there. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a careful look at these valves. I want to see if we can notice a slight movement on the exhaust valve that will confirm the operation of the compression release mechanism. So I'm pulling this by hand. Okay, here's exhaust on the top. Okay, intake valve opening, closing. Now let's see if we can see a small bump here for compression release. I just saw a tiny movement there. Now the exhaust valve opens. Now it closes. Now the intake again. And now it closes. Will we see a little bump here for compression release? I feel like I just saw the little bump there. Opens, intake opens, closes. Watch here. There's the little movement. But it's so slight as to be almost imperceptible. So I really don't know if the compression release is working as it should. It seems to be. I'm thinking maybe if I adjust this exhaust valve and close that gap a little bit, the compression release, which appears to be working, might be able to work a little better. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Alright, so a 1/8 hex key opens that inner nut, and then a 5/8 can turn this. And just want to tighten it up a little bit. Too much. That's pretty snug right there. You don't want it too tight because you want the valve to be able to fully close. So let's try that. Hold the outer nut, tighten the inner one. Check again. That feels pretty good. So it was more than 6, and the 6 thousandths was pretty loose. So now we're down to 4 thousandths, and I can feel a little drag in there. So I'm gonna try that. Let's go ahead and turn the engine and just see if that compression bump is a little bit more noticeable now. Okay, so the exhaust valve is open, it's closing. Now let's watch for this bump. Yes, that was far more noticeable. So now the exhaust valve opens, closes, intake opens, closes. Watch for the bump. See that little bump? I think that might help. Little bump, exhaust opens, intake opens, intake closes, and there's our compression bump. I don't know, maybe that'll make a difference. It feels like to me the compression release is working, and maybe just adjusting that exhaust valve is all it's going to take. So put the spark plug back in, and then we'll pull it again and see if it feels a little easier to pull that starter rope. Alright, so I have the spark plug wire disconnected. I just want to pull the starter rope a few times and see if we've resolved this, if it's a little easier to pull than it was before. I'll say it is. Yeah. So let's go ahead now and start it up for real. Prime it. And we'll see if this guy wants to start for us. Well, that feels very gratifying. That's really happy. I'm glad we did this, and I was really starting to become convinced that I was going to have to call the guy up and tell him, you need a new camshaft, we got to take the motor off, take it apart. All it took was adjusting that sloppy exhaust valve to get the compression release mechanism happy again. So that means I'm happy again, and the owner of this 20-year-old mower will also be happy again. And I'm happy that you joined me for today's video. It's a little bit of a long one, but I try to film things in real time so you can follow along with my process. And plus, I just like hearing myself talk. And I want to hear you talk to me in the discussion below. Your comments, questions, concerns, criticisms, suggestions, recommendations, and anything else you want to tell me. I'll look forward to seeing you in the discussion below. Thanks for joining me on this project. I had a lot of fun with it. I hope you did too. And remember, only you can put the do into do it yourself. And I'll see you in our next video. Bye. And I pretty much hate that howling dog.
You have to redo it now?
No, I'm not.